Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. James Haskell, along with my co-host Glenn Martin. And we are here, even in the bye, to talk about our Baltimore Ravens. Really excited to do so. Also really excited to talk about our partner who is sponsoring this episode itself, and that is Symbol. You guys have probably heard us talking about Symbol, but they are the stock market for sports. It's a really awesome and easy way to, if you want to actually make money with your sports knowledge, go check out their website. You can see it down the bottom of the screen. Make sure you use the promo code 410. What you can do is you can buy stocks of the teams you like, the Baltimore Ravens, the other teams. If you see or believe that you have a trend or recognize a trend before other people, buy low, sell high, just like the stock market. And you also get dividends or win earnings per share for every time your team wins. Really easy way and guaranteed way to make money, unless maybe you're buying stock in the Jacksonville Jaguars. Even you'd win a little money with them because even they got to win. So,
eventually.
Yeah, go check it out, guys. We have a blast with it. Every pre- and post-game show, we review how our portfolio is doing, and we've been doing that with you guys, so go check it out. But yeah, we're here to talk about the Baltimore Ravens, not just Symbol. So we're going to get right into it. But another thing really quickly, Glenn, I also got to shout out one of our most recent patrons, and I think this is awesome. Nick Dro is our newest patron, so shout out, Nick. Nick lives in Myrtle Beach, Glenn. He lives in Myrtle Beach. And you know what he does? He works on tugboats.
That's pretty
in
cool.
The open seas. And what Nick said is that he catches our videos every time he has a service to do so. And he's proud to become a first-time patron, making his debut for the 410 Sports Talk. He's been watching us, he says, since the very beginning, loves the show, and enjoys it every chance he gets. So appreciate it, Nick. Hopefully you like DK's articles. And we appreciate all the support from all our patrons. If you guys want to check out our Patreon, go ahead in the link below. And DK puts out some great stuff there. But enough of that. Let's get right into it. We're in the bye week. So I think, Glenn, it makes perfect sense to take a look back. We're going to do a season in review, talk about what happened in the past, what we can learn from and implement to move forward, and then also give out some awards and then look ahead.
Yes. Yeah, I'm excited about this one. Last week, I think, left fans thinking that the Ravens are in a lot worse shape than they actually are, right? I mean, it's always like, don't get too high, don't get too low. We hear it talked about a lot, but sometimes as a fan, it's hard to do that. We're so emotionally involved in this team that we live and die with them. And last week was certainly a tough loss. But the good news is the Ravens right now sit at 5-2. Which is, pretty. I think if every Ravens fan was guaranteed a 5-2 start through the first 7 weeks, I think most Ravens fans, if not all, would be pretty happy with that result and would take that. And that 5-2 record is good enough to be tied for not just the AFC North lead, but also the AFC in general, the AFC conference, lead as well. There's no team in the AFC better than 5-2. There's a few at the top, including the Titans, the Bengals, of course, and the Oakland Raiders, or the Las Vegas Raiders. Golly, I'm still doing that, Jimmy. But yeah, let's get into a little bit of the season in review. So, of course, they lost at week 1, losing to the Raiders 33-27. Week 2, bounced back in a big way, beating the Chiefs 36-35.
Dude, one of the best games of your life, right?
Oh, no doubt about it. Loudest I've ever heard that stadium. And yeah, I mean, one of the most exciting games, if not the most I've ever seen in person. The Ravens then follow that up with a week 3 win over the Detroit Lions, where everyone remembers Justin Tucker booting the 66-yarder to win it. And then in week 4, they take on the Denver Broncos, and they let the league know exactly how good the Denver Broncos are, and they are garbage. And they have proven to be garbage ever since that day, losing every game after that. And then the Colts game, week 5, the Ravens win a thriller. No, I'm still not over Vic Fangio being a big baby about that that final play, and he's continuing. Look, I would have been over it, but he continued it. This past week when he was talking about the Browns. So the Colts win in week 5 was another incredible comeback win. A game where the Ravens had a 3% chance at one point of winning that game, and they win the game in overtime with a touchdown to Hollywood, and then they really just dominate and thoroughly destroy the Los Angeles Chargers 34-6 in week 6 and really put the league on notice and skyrocketed up the power rankings nationally before, like I mentioned, in week 7, they lose to the Bengals 41-17 in the it's funny that game because Jimmy, isn't it so true if the scores were flip-flopped, we would have just come out of that game going, okay, that's kind of what, it wouldn't have been shocking.
Right.
But with the score how it was, I mean, world is falling. Like the Bengals Bengals fans looks like they won the Super Bowl judging by their comments. It's just
And it
amazing
hasn't
how
stopped yet, has it? It's not
no,
slowing up, man.
no, it has not. They have Super Bowl aspirations after that win, and it's just so funny of the kind of like the act like you've been there before. Like it would have been no surprise. It would have been just like, yeah, okay, that's what kind of a lot of people thought would happen if the scores were flipped. But of course they weren't. So, hey, look, congratulations to the Bengals. They played a hell of a game, but it is just a week 7 game. So let's not get too excited there.
It's like when you give a 12-year-old $1 million, right? Like, how do you expect them to act? Like they're going to act a fool, right? Like they're going to buy $1 million worth of video games and bubble gum.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was obviously just as big of a shock to their fan base as it was to the Ravens. So with that said, the Ravens are 5-2.
Yep.
I mean, when you hear that, are you pretty happy about that, Jimbo?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, knowing that we lead the league in players on IR, we lead the league in money on IR. And then on top of that, we at one point in the first 7 weeks of the season were number 1 in the AFC, in the entire AFC, and we're 5-2 with our destiny, with our own destiny in our own hands, and not having to depend on anyone else. Yes, I take that and run with it. At the end of the day, it's funny. Ray Rice was on the radio yesterday, and he said, "I'd take 5-2 over 7-0, and this team could eat. Other than the Bengals game, you could say this team could easily be 6-1, and maybe 7-0 if they did a few things, more than a few things. If a couple of plays, they played better, tackled better, did some different things on offense. But every game is determined by a handful of plays. Is my point, right?
Yep.
And so if they're 7-0, everyone's wondering, when are they going to face some adversity? When are they going to crack? When is it going to happen? You got some things, you've been battle tested. You got some bumps, you got some bruises, things that you're learning, things that you can have as psychological motivation to move forward. Right? We're not fat and happy, undefeated, moving ahead. And we see what happens. Teams get fat and happy because, I mean, look at the Chiefs, right? Like I don't care what anyone says. The Eye of the Tiger, I mean, they're at the beginning of Rocky 3, and this is not a movie, right? Like this isn't not going to turn out that way because it's not
looking
movie,
good.
Right?
They certainly need to turn things around. No doubt about that.
So I say all that to say I feel very good with where we're at and the team that we have, and it's for 2 reasons. One of them, which really I want to get to, one of them is strictly about health. The fact that we will be getting reinforcements coming back, and the other one is we get to see this Bengals team again.
Oh, yeah.
We get another chance at these guys, and believe you me, the margin will not be the same.
No.
For those 2 reasons, I feel very confident moving forward. But I think we should talk about, before we give out some midseason awards,
we got to get into some statistics, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to talk about some stats, and I want to talk about what we can do that's within our control that we can actually improve on this year. Because everyone wants these like wholesale changes midseason. It's not going to happen. We're not going to change our playbook. We're not going to, throw away our defensive scheme, but what can we actually do? But yeah, let's start with some stats. Okay. I kind of, soapbox there for a second, but let's hit the stats.
Let's do it. All right. So offensively, total yards, the Ravens rank 4th in the league, averaging 417.5 yards per game. So not too bad there, right? You're 4th in the league in offense. Now, how that's broken down more granularly is that in passing, as my computer loads, here we go. The Ravens are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They're 9th in the league in passing, averaging 268 passing yards per game. And then rushing, they are 4th in the league on the ground, averaging, drum roll, 149.4 per game on the ground. So offensively, really good in both areas. Your top 10 passing, top 5 rushing. That's the kind of that's the kind of balance that I think a lot of Ravens fans have been hoping for in the last few years, where it was just clearly a run-heavy offense and their passing game. You're talking 1 and 32 as far as rankings. So to see both of those rankings in the top 10, shout out to the Ravens coaching staff, shout out to the players for making those adjustments and getting better in the offseason. Right now, the offense is certainly good enough to get the Ravens where they need to be. But let's talk about the defense, because this is not the Ravens defense we're used to seeing here in Baltimore. This is a Ravens defense that's playing well below the standard that was set here a long, long time ago. Currently, the Ravens give up 382 yards per game in total. They give up 2,000 yards. They've given up 2,000 yards passing so far, which is 200. Averages out to 296 passing yards allowed per game, which is just insane to me. They've given up 603 yards on the ground, which averages out to 86 per game. That just can't be. That's not a recipe for success. And they've given up an average also of 23.5 points per game so far this year, which, again, not where the Ravens expected to be when this year started. And I'm sure Ravens fans are very disappointed. I mean, that's the bottom half of the league. Let's see where it is. It's right around 17th, 18th in the league.
That's where we want to be, mediocre, right?
Yeah, don't want to be there, because that and really, Jimmy, isn't that the worst place to be, is in the middle? I mean, at least if you're the worst, you have some benefit. You're getting a good draft pick usually.
Right, like look at where the Bengals and the Browns are now, because they've been bad for so many years. Like that's the reward for sucking for so long. So yeah, absolutely. It's worse being in the middle because you're in purgatory. Like look at the Broncos.
Yeah, tough spot.
Yeah,
because they don't want to tear it down and just do a true rebuild. They want to keep trying to win while also half rebuilding, and it can be tough when you're picking in the teens every year. At least when you're picking in the 20s, you go, well, we're coming out of the playoffs. We got something to build on. When you're in the teens, you simply miss the lottery and you miss the playoffs, and you're just in the middle. And so, obviously the Ravens in the standings aren't in the middle, but their rankings defensively are either in the middle or they're at the bottom end of the league. So they certainly got some improving they got to get done.
Yeah, so that's really what I want to focus on. The stats are telling in that, like you said, there's a lot of room for improvement. But I want to talk about where we think it can actually happen, and I want to give a few. I want to get your feelings on this. So what I mean by that is, like I said before, where improvement can be had this year, guys. I'm not talking about unrealistic Madden trades or wholesale changes to their defense or their offense or whatever, but where this team can get better today, these next 2 weeks going into the rest of the season. And the easiest place for me to start, it sounds really simple and everyone will know where I'm going. If you had to bet, you can probably guess. Simply tackling.
Yeah.
Finishing plays on the defensive side of the ball is huge. So while that's an obvious one, before I pass it over to you to talk about some of the other ones that you have, I also want to give you this to chew on. I think that starting early for the offense is one that I've noticed is a trend that we've been struggling to do, where if I'm not mistaken, that 2019 year, we scored on the first drive in a ridiculous
pretty much
percentage.
Every game.
Right, in a ridiculous percentage of the games. And so I think that starting earlier with a little more energy is another one that comes to my mind, and execution, of course, that can be something that can be improved upon, coming out of the bye. What do you think about those things? And what are some other things that you think are realistic improvements that this team can make?
Yeah, I mean, I think tackling is the big one on defense. It's been absolutely horrendous, whether that's, the passing game and, the defensive backs not getting it done, or even in the run game, giving up far too many big plays on the ground and through the air. I mean, both we've seen multiple 50-plus yard plays, and it's just killing this team. And it's not because, people point to scheme, and the scheme is getting guys there. And if they're not making the tackle, then it's not the scheme's fault. It's the player's fault. So, and they've admitted as such. I mean, I just listened to a Patrick Queen press conference where it's first of all, it's got to be tough to do what he's doing, because you know what you're going to get asked. You know the criticisms are there, and you know that they're valid. This isn't like where you go up there and, sometimes the questions, we don't know the play. We don't know the play call. We don't know the player's responsibility. We don't know certain things. So while we may criticize, they can at least kind of go, you may think that was my fault, but that was actually so-and-so's fault. And I'm going to take it because I'm standing in front of a microphone. I'm not going to call out my teammate. But when you know it's your fault and everyone else knows it's your fault and it's a tackling issue where it's pretty obvious when they see you throw your shoulder into someone and then not wrap and the guy goes for another 30. There's really no arguing whether it's this guy's fault or that guy's fault when you're just missing tackles. So that had to be hard.
But let me ask you this. Let me ask you this real quick in this interview. I made a funny mental note here. So have you ever been in a conversation with your spouse, with your wife, and she's like, hey, you need to do this. Like, don't you keep forgetting to do this. You need to do this, right? And you're like, yeah. And you say it, but you know in the back of your mind, you're not going to do it. Yeah. Like, you just know it. But then there's other times where you have a conversation where you're saying it and you know you're going to do it, but then that person still doesn't really believe you.
Yeah.
And then until they see you do it. But you know in your heart of hearts that you're going to do it, right? Yeah. So, like, I felt I couldn't get a read on Pat where he, like, how convinced he was in and of himself that he's going to make a wholehearted commitment to being a better tackler. Does that make sense? Like, where he really lies. Were you able to perceive anything from, the way he was speaking? Because he did take it head on. Like, he took it in the chin and was like, I know what my weaknesses are, basically, and I know that I need to work on them. But that doesn't mean you're going to do it. He could just be paying lip service. Do you know what I mean?
He could be. So when you frame it like that, the way I look at it is what's the level of shame or embarrassment? Because to me, that's what makes me change. Like, if she's annoyed for me doing something and it's like embarrassing what I'm doing or like I'm ashamed of it, then I usually change it right away. If I don't, then there's chances are I might just do the lip service thing and continue operating as usual. So to me, I saw a level of shame and embarrassment from him. And I think alone, I mean, that's a good thing. I think that alone. Now, my only question is, does he have the confidence that he can make those adjustments and get better? Because I don't think that there will be an issue of whether he'll try to correct those things. I think that the sheepishness that I saw, like he just seemed like he knew he'd screwed up and he'd been screwing up and he knows what he has to do. But the question is, does he have confidence that he can start making these plays?
Because we're not asking him to turn into Ray. We're asking him to just finish tackles, right?
That's it. When you got your hands on someone, bring them to the ground. And when you're a linebacker, I mean, it's hard to point to that's like pointing to a quarterback and going, well, you got to be able to throw. Well, no kidding. I mean, that's your part. So got to be able to tackle. I mean, that's like a running back. You got to be able to run. I mean,
I hate the rip downs. These rip down. Like, I hate when he's standing there and he finishes a play standing up expecting to tackle someone.
Yeah.
You both should fall, should
be on the
hit
ground.
The ground.
No
right.
doubt.
Like, that's how I hate the rip down crap. Like, that's a DB thing. Stop, Pat.
And it's 100% right. A lot of times he tackles like a DB, like a safety. But yeah, so 100% agree there. And I think the biggest one for me offensively, I mean, you mentioned, what was your offensive
starting one? Early.
Yeah, starting early. 100% agree because this team far too often this year has started very, very slow in the whole first half. But to me, the reason they're starting so slowly, part of the reason I should say, is because our third down success all year has been just horrendous. I mean, ever since Lamar Jackson took over as the full-time starter, we have been a third down cheat code as a team because of Lamar Jackson, because if they drop back and it's not there, he just gets it with his legs. I mean, he says, who cares? I'll get it this way. But this year, Jimbo, 36% third down conversion rate is just not where the Ravens have been since he's been here. I mean, they've been far, far better than that. So I'm hopeful. And a lot of that 36% has been in the second half where it's like night and day. I mean, in the first half, we'll go 0 for 5 in third down. And the second half, we'll go 4 for 6. So it's like, even those numbers are a little bit deceiving in that you're right. The first half has just been a struggle offensively. I mean, and a lot of it's also we haven't been able to establish the run like we had in years prior. I mean, this year has been the biggest struggle we've seen on the ground, which is hilarious in the sense that we're fourth in the league in rushing yards. But a lot of that has been Lamar Jackson. It's not been the running back. We haven't had that complimentary running back all year. I mean, all year it's been a different guy every game seemingly. And even, I mean, have we had a 100-yard rusher this year outside of Lamar? I don't think we have. I mean,
Yeah, not that I can think of, certainly.
and
And
that's
so let me add to
crazy.
your point and ask you this. One of the things that comes to my mind, I agree with your point 100%. One of the things that comes to my mind is the fact that I feel like, I mean, we know for a fact based on advanced analytics that Lamar Jackson is holding the ball the longest and right now in the backfield, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So my concern is, and one of the things I've noticed is that before, like you're saying, he would tuck it and book it. He was out of there, right?
Yeah.
In moments, in fact, I think I even criticized him for like predetermining it. Like, nah, I'm not actually passing this. This is all smoke screen because I don't trust you fools. I'm getting the first down. Like, and I don't blame him for it. He's the best player on the field 999 times out of 100, right? Or out of 1,000. And
Mm-hmm.
so what the heck? If you can do it, do it. But my question is, do you think that like he's holding on to the ball so long, especially, on any of these, obviously on any of these passing plays. And I feel like it's, he's not taking off as quickly. So he's listening to these people that are criticizing him on his ability to push the ball downfield and this, that, and the other, and saying, you know what, I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to stay in the pocket longer. And then he hasn't been able to squeak out like he did years past. He's been getting sacked more. He's taking more sacks,
Mm-hmm.
taking more hits. And so my concern is if he's forcing the ball downfield, not taking what's in front of him. At least that's my correlation with what your concern is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you could look at it as he's trying to silence the naysayers, or you could just look at it and like that's the next evolution of the offense, and it just so happens to align with a lot of the criticisms out there. That this is what the defense or what the offense has been planning the whole time to back these guys up and get them out of the box
Mm,
with a downfield vertical passing attack, and so he's just trying to buy time for his guys to get open. I mean, we've seen that around the league, guys sitting in pockets
yeah.
waiting for big plays. But the problem is, if the big play doesn't present itself, can you get through your progressions and work to the check down and take what the defense gives you rather than trying to force, which is exactly what we're seeing in Kansas City. They're taking away the big play,
Yep.
and Pat Mahomes is just not used
Struggling.
to, he's just not taking what the defense gives him. He's not comfortable with a 15-play drive. He wants to have more 6-7 plays and wait for them big chunk ones, and they're not giving chunk plays out to the Chiefs this year. So I think the same can be said here. Eventually, teams are going to stop allowing chunk plays, and they're going to say, you're going to have to beat us with a 15-play drive. But that should, if the run game can get back to what it
Yeah,
used to.
theoretically speaking, that sounds great,
I mean,
right?
that's what we do. We do long play drives. I mean, that's what the Ravens do. I mean, they have 10 to
Interesting.
15 play drives consistently and since Lamar's been here. So you wouldn't think it would be an unfamiliar, territory for the Ravens. So, they've got to get better. There's no doubt about it. But the run game and the third down conversions to me has got to be the biggest focal point in this bye week. I don't know if it's something you can fix in a bye. I don't know if it's just do you have the personnel to do it, or if it's a scheme thing and you just got to figure out how to scheme up these players. I mean, maybe they're just trying to fit players to the scheme and they need to kind of try and deconstruct it a little bit and fit the scheme to the players. I mean, that might be the best opportunity they have, but we got to see some healthy, mainstays like Latavius is now out.
Mm-hmm.
So health certainly plays a part in it. But I didn't want to, I wanted to remind you guys, this episode is brought to you by Symbol. Use our promo code 410
Right.
to get some was it $10 of some extra money. And just look at it this way: if you're a young person and you want to learn how to invest some money, look, combine your love with sports with a way to invest in a long-term money-making, stock market in sports. I mean, use your intelligence, and what you already love to do is watch sports, evaluate sports, and use that to make money. And you can do that at Symbol, and you can get started early by using our promo code 410. But I wanted to get into a little bit of what lies ahead for the Ravens, because it's not going to be an easy road to hoe the remainder of the year. I mean, there's about 3 winnable games, I'd say, coming out of the bye week where the Ravens are really going to have to take advantage of. They have the Vikings to start on November 7th at home, coming out of a bye. Got to win that game. They're traveling here. You're coming off a bye, have to win that game. Then they travel to Miami to take on a Dolphin team that looks like they're in absolute disarray. And let's be honest, I expect the Ravens fans to probably outnumber the Dolphin fans considering how many Florida boys we got, including Lamar Jackson. And then they got the Bears in the Windy City after they just got their doors blown completely off by Tampa. So you got to win those games because including those games, with those three winnable games included, the Ravens have the sixth hardest remaining schedule in the entire league. They're currently their opponent's win record or opponent's record is 38-29. So they're right now a 56.7% win percentage, and that includes those three winnable games, which tells you after those three, it gets really crazy down the stretch.
Yeah, exactly. And even after those three, and I'll go through them, but something you got to keep in mind is, so you're talking, all the way to week 12, we still have from week 12 to 18, we still have 5 division games left.
Crazy.
5. Really backloaded when it comes to the division. And I think that's why that's, another reason why that schedule is even more difficult. So after the Bears, of course, you got the Browns on a Sunday night. Never an easy game. We remember what happened last year it was a Monday night game, but certainly another primetime game there. So the NFL didn't want to miss out on that meal ticket. Made sure that was a primetime game again. Mm-hmm. Following that, we got another division battle against the Steelers. Another 425 game. That'll be interesting at Heinz Field. Certainly Ben, I believe it's his swan song at this point. So going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And then we have the Browns again, and then they're coming off of a bye. So I've never seen this before, where literally all they'll play is the Ravens in almost a month. They'll play the Ravens for consecutively 2 times in 3 weeks.
Yeah. So they have a month where all they think about is the Ravens.
Right. So certainly it puts us at a disadvantage. And those are 3 challenging games. Even though the Steelers aren't necessarily much of a threat, it's still the Steelers. Like, we know the history there. And so let me just run through these last few, Glenn. Then after that, no easy one with the Packers coming into town. I mean, obviously we know what they are. And then following that, we got the Bengals again,
who just handled the Ravens and gave us our worst loss in recent
And we got to go to the jungle and play them out there in Cincy. And then to wrap up the season, of course, we have the Rams, who a lot of people are picking to win the NFC, come out of the NFC. Obviously, they put work in on the Tampa Bay Bucks. We saw that. Mm-hmm. And then we wrap it up, and we'll be at this game, but we wrap it up at home against the Steelers. Another, and this will be Ben's most likely last game, last time in the bank. He's going to want to give it all he's got, and they're going to want to go out there and win for him. That's going to be a very emotional and hard-fought game. So a lot of tough ones coming up, man. A lot of tough ones, and we need to keep pace if we're going to win this division and have a chance to to have some sort of a home game during the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, 5 of their final 7 games are division games. How crazy is that stretch, Jimbo?
Talk about nail biters, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely insane. And so there's definitely a lot that they have to, they're going to have to win a lot of these tough games. It's not like, you don't get a trophy for coming close to winning some of these games. They're going to have to win these games if they want to make it into the playoffs.
Especially not here, especially not our fans. We don't play that game.
Yeah, we don't have.
So let me ask you this
victories.
really quickly, though, Glenn. Let me ask you this before we get into our awards and things like that. How confident are you? We talked about, to summarize, we talked about tackling. Mm-hmm. We talked about starting faster. We talked about third downs, improving their third down percentage. And then you mentioned something else, I think, defensively that I'm forgetting. But where's your confidence level that they can actually improve those things along with the health? Because if those things come along and the health, look, teams don't want to see us, even though right now we're not the darlings of mainstream media. We know what we are as a team. So how confident are you that we can get the job done?
Well, I tell you, I'm confident in their tackling. I think they're going to get back in track. And the reason I am is that this wasn't a historically bad tackling defense.
Right.
And the guys who are really the main culprit as far as the poor tackling have shown that they could tackle in the past. So I'm confident that with the focal point being on tackling from the coaching staff, from the media, the players all know it. This isn't something that they're not aware of. They certainly know that tackling has been an issue. So I'm confident that they're going to make that a focus, and then they're going to clean that up. It's not like a thing where, well, we just don't have the guys that can do it. The guys missing the tackles are guys who've shown it their entire career they can tackle. So I don't know what the heck's going on this year. I don't know if it's a focus on they're trying to strip the ball too much. They're trying to make the big highlight hit where they like Patrick Queen laying his shoulder into guys. Take take them to the ground. Do not try and blow anybody up. Just try and stop them in their tracks, and that should be the goal. So I'm confident in that regard. I'm a little less confident in the other side where I'm hopeful, the Ravens can get this run game going. I'm a little bit less confident there just because, these guys that we got here just aren't Gus, and they're just not JK. They're just, they're a step behind. And a lot of these guys are towards the end of their careers. They're older. They're in their 30s. They've had a lot of wear and tear on their bodies. This is a tough game, especially as a running back. It might be the single toughest position in football. I mean, when you think about the beating that those guys have to sustain, as well as even when they're not receiving the ball, they have to be a pass blocker against a big lineman or a linebacker coming screaming in. So it's just a lot of wear and tear. I worry, even though this team's still fourth. I think you know what I mean when I say it has to come from the running backs, not just Lamar Jackson. We need to have some type of threat to run the ball in between the tackles. We can't just let Lamar be the primary ball carrier and be our leading rusher every single game. It's just, I don't think it's sustainable. So I'm a little bit more concerned about the offensive worries, and which is interesting because the offense is right now top 10 in both, and the defense is struggling. But if they can just clean up the tackling, then I feel like, just that alone will change so much. Think of the yak yards this Ravens defense has given up. It's absolutely it's appalling. I mean, it's ridiculous. They can't keep it going.
Sometimes it's just like a team that can't hit free throws, right? Like that's just something they're plagued with the entire season. And they don't, you know what I mean? That's my only concern. So I understand your point, but I'm going to say that I'm more confident in the offense.
Okay.
I think I'm more confident I have more confidence in the offense because I think that based on the age of our defense, I get nervous about if we've seen the best of what we have, like how much more we can improve. Mm-hmm. And doing this as a defense will be expected because I feel like we're kind of at our ceiling. Is a lot of our players, this is the best they'll ever be. Or maybe on the back nine. Where our offense, I think we're so young still as an offense, and our offensive line still has some time to, depending on what happens with Makari, but also with Cleveland coming back and still has some time to gel, to get better. And Lamar Jackson is just so dynamic. Mm-hmm. It's so dynamic that I have confidence that I have more confidence in the offense than the defense. But I also agree with you that I'd love to see practices in this 2-week stretch. You know what I mean? To see how physical these guys are getting in practice.
Yeah. I mean, I guess my whole thing was, I thought your question was like to fix the. I mean, obviously, I have more confidence right now in the offense than I do in the defense. I meant,
but the likability of it, or the probability of it happening.
Can they fix those the perceived problems? Like, I don't know if the Ravens can fix their run game when it comes to getting a running back who can actually be productive.
Well, I guess what I would say is this: I have more confidence that the offense will improve dramatically on third down than I do the defense will tackling. Even though you're absolutely right that the tackling thing is just an effort thing, right? Where there's a lot more that goes into improving our third down efficiency, but I have that much more faith in the offense and unfortunately not in the defense. Yeah, but I understand your point too. It's much easier. Like, I mean, just tackle, right?
Patrick Queen's been tackling people his entire life. I mean, what? All of a sudden he can't tackle? I mean,
and don't tell me he's been a running back his whole life, guys. He's playing football his whole life. Okay,
that's right. He
knows how to tackle people.
And believe me, when he was younger, he was playing both sides,
every position, every play.
Like, hey, what do we need done? Let PQ do it because he's probably the best athlete who steps on the field when he was young.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I think they definitely have to do some soul searching and get that effort, up to match to get the tackling. But let's get into some midseason awards, both positive and negative. Where should we start when it comes to the awards?
Yeah, I mean, I think the easy one, we'll just check it off the list, folks. So we're going to do MVP, most improved player, and most disappointing player. So we'll start with the easy one, MVP. Lamar Jackson is our MVP, right, Glenn? No guessing there. I'm assuming that's who your MVP is.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no other way to slice it.
But let me ask you this, Jimbo.
All right.
Yes, he's the MVP, and he might at the season's end be the league MVP. There's no doubt about it. Lamar Jackson is absolutely incredible. But it's too easy to name him MVP. He's going to be the MVP of this team when the media announces it. It's going to be him. But let's pretend that the
Justin
quarterback
Tucker
wasn't allowed. Okay, that easy, huh?
No. I was being facetious. I just wanted to goof off with you.
Okay. All right, so if for some reason quarterback was not allowed to win this award, who would be your team MVP if it wasn't Lamar Jackson?
Yeah,
I
now I'm
mean,
serious thinking about it.
it,
Maybe it is Justin Tucker.
it might very well be. It's
It's
hard to
got to be him,
argue.
or if it's not him, it's Hollywood Brown, right? Like just based on his numbers.
Yeah,
Or you know what?
Mark
I'm
Andrews
going.
too.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm going with Mark Andrews. Hollywood Brown's numbers are relatively inflated in my opinion. He's doing well, but he gets a lot of targets, man. Like let's be honest, he gets a lot of targets. I'm sure I don't even have the stats up in front of me, but I can guarantee you he has more targets than Mark Andrews by a decent margin. So I'm gonna go with Mark Andrews. I think when push comes to shove, outside of Lamar Jackson, he might be our most valuable player on this team.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to argue that. I mean,
Can you make an argument for Chuck Clark?
If he made more splash plays, I could. But
Yeah.
I mean, I love the consistency. He's been our most consistent defensive player. But I don't think he's made enough. Now defensively, it's Chuck Clark. If I had to make an MVP on one on offense,
Each
one on
side, right.
defense, it's definitely Chuck Clark. To me, he's been the most consistent. While he hasn't maybe had the big crazy splash play like some of these other guys might be able to claim, he's just every game he's been good, and so I got to give him the credit where it's due. But offensively, if I had to give it to someone other than Lamar, I would give it to Marquise. You're right; he has 6 more targets, and they have the same amount of catches. But 6 probably isn't as much as you were expecting it to be.
No, it's not, honestly. I thought it
Yeah, I
was going
bet
to be
you
bigger if
thought
I
he'd
had to
have
bet.
more. And so but he has double the touchdowns that Mark Andrews has. So for that reason, I get that he had the game where he had the horrible drops. And look, the catch percentage shows that. He's got a 65% catch percentage while Mark Andrews is at 72.5. So it shows in the numbers. However, if they didn't have Marquise Brown, this team would be in a whole lot of trouble, Jimbo. Whole lot of trouble. Same could be said for Andrews, but
Yeah.
if you take away the speed that Marquise is bringing to this team, it would be bad news Bears. So I would have to give it to him. But let's get into our most improved player. Who has gotten the best? So obviously this can't be a rookie. This can't be a newcomer. This has to be a guy who's at least spent one previous season here in Baltimore. So Jimbo, who is your most improved player from the Ravens this year?
Yeah, so my most improved player is probably Marquise Brown. I think that what we're seeing in his game is a significant jump, and shout out to Nana. I know she's not the biggest Soldier Brown fan, but one thing that we're seeing in the progression of his game is he's now he's planting his foot in the ground. He's turning upfield and looking for yak yards. And I think it's making a big difference in his performance as a player. The long ball is back. It was kind of taking a break last year. Him and Lamar getting it done. And now he's playing more physically. And so the intermediate and short stuff is coming into play. So I think his value has increased exponentially as a wide receiver. He's not just a long ball type guy. They can give him the ball and have him turn it upfield and try and make a guy miss. So I'm going to go with Hollywood Brown. However, my honorable mention, while he doesn't have a ton of stats, is probably James Prochet.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, certainly he shined more in the preseason than in the season, but
he's had some moments. I think, was that the Chiefs game or that was the Colts game, right? Where he had some.
He had some big time late catches, no doubt about it. Some big time first downs. All right, so for me, this one might be a little controversial, but hear me out. I got to give it to Anthony Averitt. Anthony Averitt was asked to step into a role that, I mean, look, he never expected to take this many snaps because Marcus Peters was there, and we know what that guy does. I mean, that guy's an absolute monster, and Averitt was forced into a role. And look, when you have Marlon Humphrey, an all-pro, opposite you, there's no doubt you're going to get picked on. You're going to get targeted a lot. And yeah, he had one really, really bad game against the Colts. But outside of that one really, really bad game against the Colts, he's played pretty well. Last week against the Bengals, he outplayed Marlon Humphrey by a wide margin. When you look at the targets and the catches allowed, the yards allowed last week, I mean, Anthony Averitt played a pretty solid game. He held up really, really well. On less targets, Marlon Humphrey gave up far more catches, way more yards, had less tackles. I mean, so the reason I give it to Anthony Averitt is he has two interceptions this year, which leads our team. He's got 8 pass breakups, which leads our team. He's got 38 tackles combined, which leads our team, Jimbo. This guy leads in category. Now, look, if you're a corner, you don't necessarily want to lead the team in tackles because that usually means you're giving up catches and then you have to tackle the guy. But the fact that he leads our team in so many key categories, I got to give him the award. I get that game was really, really bad against the Colts, but outside of that game and heading into that game, he had the lowest passer rating given up when man-to-man coverage. So the guy's had one really poor game, and the rest of the season he's played well enough to earn my most improved player. I like what I've seen from him. I just had to squint and go I had to kind of go like this when I was watching the Colts game, just peeking through the fingertips.
Sure. No, absolutely. Now, what do you think about Metabike?
Disappointing.
All right.
Disappointing in that not that he's played poorly, but I was expecting a bigger leap.
The hype was real.
I mean, he was picked as a dark horse MVP.
That's it,
Or defensive player of the year, I should say. And he's got 1 sack and 11 tackles in total in the year. I mean, that's just that's not 3 QB hits all year. I mean, that's just not what we thought coming into this year that we would see. So I got to give mine to Anthony Averitt.
All right.
Yeah, well, shout out to AW. Or AA,
absolutely.
I should say.
AW.
It's been a long day.
Oh, that's awesome. So let's move to most disappointing. I'll let you keep rolling here, Glenn, and give yours first, even though you might have just revealed it. Because I think mine is going to surprise you. So I'll let you go first.
Well, mine is Brandon Williams. Mine is Brandon Williams because of the fact that he is paid so handsomely. He's got a $12.9 million cap hit. And I get it. He's not a guy who typically fills up the stat sheet. I understand that. But the dude's got 13 tackles in 7 games and rarely does anything to make you notice him. I mean, that's the thing that bugs me. It's not like...
Would you have felt that way before the Bengals game when they were gashing us? Like, you know what I mean? Because I feel like Brandon can say, well, look at our team stats and our average rush yards given up per game, right? I think they were at 82 or 88, something like that. So not a terrible number. And still under 100. Would you still have made him your most disappointing player before this Bengals game?
Yeah, because he's just too highly paid. He's our second highest paid player on the team.
Right.
And what is he really giving you that's unreplaceable in the sense that, I mean, are you telling me that all he does is eat 2 blockers? You can't find a big slob that can eat 2 blockers? I mean, he gives you, if that's all he gives you is he eats 2 blockers, then tell me why the linebacking core is playing like crap. Is it really because their effort is so poor they can't tackle? Or is it because they keep getting stuck in some belly buttons of these big offensive linemen because Mr. Eats 2 tackles or eats 2 blockers isn't eating 2 blockers no more? He's just really standing there. I mean, I just needed to see more out of your second highest paid player than 13 total tackles over the first 6 weeks or 7 weeks of the season. That's 7 weeks. And you're talking about 3 or 13 tackles. I mean, that's not good. A 1 tackle for loss, Jimmy, in 7 games. He's got 1 freaking tackle for loss. That's unacceptable. He's got 0 QB hits on the year. And I get that it's not his game, but 0 QB hits, not sacks. He ain't even smelled the quarterback. So I need to see more out of this guy. I mean, it's just been disappointing. And Jimmy, if I told you that in the seat now, in hindsight, of course, hindsight being 2020, if I could say, I'll take Brandon Williams, put him on IR, and give you a healthy Derek Wolfe and put him in his place, do you think Derek Wolfe in 7 games would have more than 13 tackles and no QB hits?
Yeah, and on top of that, Derek Wolfe's entire 3-year extension we gave him is worth less than what Brandon Williams is making this year. So his entire contract is less, which is 3-year contract, less than what Brandon Williams makes this year. Crazy.
So when you say disappointing, it's him. I mean, he has been disappointing, and I understand his role, and in his role, he's been disappointing.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I want to give you mine, and I don't disagree with yours, but there was a lot of momentum going into this season, and even I remember preseason. It was funny. I remember preseason game 1. We were outside the gates, waiting to get in. It was taking forever because they were understaffed, and we're watching the big screen. And you remember who made that first defensive highlight that hit Malik Harrison?
Oh yeah,
Malik Harrison is nowhere to be found except on special teams. He got replaced by Josh Bynes.
Mm-hmm.
They literally called in a vet that was a free agent that could have retired and gone off into the sunset and said, Josh, please come on back. We need you. Young boy's not getting it done.
Mm-hmm.
There was so much momentum. I was not one of them. Remember, I said it was going to be Chris Board and PQ eventually that were going to be running mates. I was not one of them that was on the Malik Harrison train, but a lot of people were. I don't see anything from Malik Harrison these days that is noteworthy, that is right home to your mama worthy. Like, I just don't see it. Yeah. So yeah, my biggest disappointment this year is Malik Harrison. I think it's interesting that both of ours are defensive, because I could easily go, we could go offensive and I mean, yeah, there's some guys up front that, like, Ben Powers is.
Yeah, but I mean, did we ever really expect him to be that great? I tell you, Big Al was a disappointment at right, but he saved our bacon at left. I mean,
Yeah,
if
because
without
imagine
him,
playing Tyree Phillips at left right now.
oh my God, it would just be devastating to watch. So, but yeah, I mean that I think both of them 100% agree with you. These guys got to get better if the Ravens want to get where they want to go. They either got to get better or they're going to get replaced. And I think Brandon Williams right now, think about this, Jimmy. He's our second highest paid player on the team who's not on the IR, and he plays half the snaps defensively.
Is there any team out there that needs a guy like him? And that's on top of it, depending on the contract structure. Like, is there even any? I mean, I guess you could, in a trade, of course, the hit is gone, but it's not like we're going to cut him mid-season because there's
nobody's
probably
trading for $13 million.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, how movable of an asset is this guy? Who wants this guy?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing they can do is when Derek Wolfe returns, take some of his snaps away. I mean, and he's only at 50%. It's not like he's, so at 50% of the snaps, you have 13 tackles. To me, that's embarrassingly bad. So, but yeah, let us know what you guys think. Is there anything we missed in reviewing this season? Obviously, in review, the Ravens sit at 5-2. Everything in front of them is still achievable. They still have a very good shot at winning the North and a very good shot at coming out of the AFC and representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. It's certainly still ahead of them. Got some big names coming back from injury, and stay tuned for that video. We're going to do a video about which of those names is the most impactful, who's expected to return. But let us know your MVP. Let us know your most disappointing. Let us know your what was the other one we did?